All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, as I say all the time when I make many of these videos, whether it's a digression or it's the actual point of the video, this society is governed by the tenets of the Babylonian / Kemetic mystery school system. And that trickles down to the Phoenician concept of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, which fully entails child sacrifice. The Phoenicians worshiped Baal, they worshiped El. The term El is in reference to Saturn. And they understood that in order to appease their concept of a quote-unquote god or deity, they had to sacrifice their child by throwing them into an inferno, because Baal or El was also the god of fire. He became known in Rome as Vulcan, or known in Greece as Hephaestus. He was known in ancient Kemet as Ptah. Ptah was always aligned with Saturn. Ptah was also known as the divine bull, as was Asar, as was Bacchus, so on and so forth. My point being is this: all these cultures venerated the same idea of a quote-unquote deity. And America does the same thing. Whether it's the bull or the divine goat, quote-unquote, Western civilization on an elite level is governed according to the energies of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system and the elite from antiquity. In the same way that in ancient Sumer or in ancient Greece or Phoenicia, as I've already mentioned, in the same way that certain deities or certain pantheons were venerated in a way that they had to be appeased and you had to follow through on certain rituals to keep your society going. Like, for example, during the Punic Wars, when Carthage, which was a colony of the Phoenicians, believed that the reason why they were losing to the Romans was because they had not appeased their god. I believe their god was named Melkart. That was just another version of Baal or Mars, as Rome called that entity. They believed that they had to appease their quote-unquote god by sacrificing as many of their children as possible. In America, they do the same thing, but they cannot allow the masses to know that the same quote-unquote hidden god is worshipped here as was worshipped back in the days of old. So they have to make it more palatable for the people. That's why they create these arguments and these discussions about abortion. The reason why they legalize abortion is so that they could take the fetuses and the newborn children of the quote-unquote citizens of America and sacrifice them to Baal. The blood of the children is necessary for the continuance of many of these Luciferian societies. So now that brings us to the state of Georgia, that has decided to pass something called the heartbeat bill, in which they're saying that the only way that a woman can have an abortion is if their fetus does not have a discernible heartbeat. And that, of course, is causing great consternation from most of the liberal females, not just in Georgia, but all of America. Because contrary to what's depicted about the average female here in this society, they have no problem killing their children. And that's all abortion is the murder of the child. And they're trying to make it into a female health issue. At the end of the day, probably only about 0.001% of all abortions are for physical health reasons or for incest. The vast majority of the reasons why the woman decides to get an abortion, which is the killing of the fetus or the killing of the child, is because she wants to continue on being cavalier with her quote-unquote sexuality. As I've always stated, whenever the female is liberated, she's the one who's going to overly sexualize herself. And this notion that it's her body and they could do what they want with their body, no, it's not just your body. There's actually another creature, another body that is developing within your womb. So the fact that you've been granted that gift from the Most High does not allow you to also have the gift of being able to kill that child whenever you want. That means that you also have the great responsibility of understanding that you spread your legs for someone that you want to have a child with, especially if you're going to have unprotected sex. That's what that really means. But as those of us with understanding realize, the pro-abortion stance is really just a branch on the tree of taking away all accountability from the woman. The modern day woman is never held accountable for her actions at all. And it's created this spoiled brat dynamic with the modern liberal female. And that's why you see that there's a preponderance of women bitching and complaining in public, on television, in the workplace now, because they've never been told that they're wrong. The modern day woman does not get told that she's wrong. That's why it's so difficult for her to admit that she's wrong. Modern day females are raised to believe that they're never incorrect and that they're smarter than all men. And this delusion maintains with them now well into their 50s and 60s. It's not until a woman is normally in her mid to late 50s and 60s that she's able to reflect back and say, I was wrong about a lot of things that I did in my life. If you have conversations with females in their 20s and 30s, it's almost impossible for them to acknowledge or admit that they're wrong about anything because of the way that this society enables them. And the pro-abortion stance or platform is one of the main components of this society and the agenda to make the female believe that she is a god, that she can do whatever she wants. I can go out there and have sex with 5 different men, get pregnant, and then have the fetus killed. And I can do so conscience-free, guilt-free. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
This morning, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected to sign one of the most restrictive and controversial anti-abortion laws in the country. The bill makes abortions illegal once a heartbeat is detected in the embryo. That can happen as early as 5 or 6 weeks after conception.
Now check this out. The Life Act bill says that they're going to make abortions illegal once the heartbeat is detectable, and this can happen within 5 to 6 weeks of conception. What they're basically telling females is to make sure that if you miss your period, that you engage in a pregnancy test so that you can find out as soon as possible if you're pregnant. They're still giving the woman the out to be able to have an abortion. They just want the woman to be more responsible in her conduct and in her actions. That's all this bill really is. It's not even stopping you from getting your murder fix.
Mark Strassman is in Atlanta with why the law could face a long legal challenge. Mark, good morning.
The law is going to face a long legal challenge, and it's probably not going to pass. But this is just another example of how this society is starting to try to snap back against many of the Luciferian principles that were pushed on this country back in the mid to late 70s.
Good morning. This bill, also known as the Life Act, is yet another state's challenge to the legal milestone of Roe v. Wade, 1973 decision that made abortion legal in this country.
What it did was it reintroduced the concept of the veneration of Molech and Baal. That's what it really did. Once again, to appease Molech / Baal or Kronos or Saturn, you have to sacrifice your child. Whenever you do research on the quote-unquote god Saturn, he's depicted eating his own children.
And once the governor here signs this bill, lawsuits from opponents are guaranteed.
We as a state can recognize the life interest of these helpless children.
State Representative Ed Setzler is the main sponsor of the bill.
Of course, whenever you have an issue about abortion, you're going to see a multitude of so-called liberal black females pop up. They love aborting their children, as I've told you, brothers, numerous times. They love to talk about black on black crime. The greatest account of black on black crime has been the 15 million black children that have been killed by liberal black females in this society over the last 45 to 50 years. That is the greatest genocide in America when it comes to our people.
That's thrusting Georgia into the middle of America's controversy over abortion rights.
Now look at this bullshit right here. Let me rewind this back a little bit. Let me rewind this back just a tad, because we're going to evaluate some of these depictions of these females and things of this nature so that we can decipher exactly what they're trying to communicate. This person here says that she's voiceless. No, actually, it's the opposite. They're trying to encourage you to use your voice. You use your voice before you lay down with that man. You say, put on a condom. That's what they're trying to encourage you to do. They want you to use your voice. They don't want you to be voiceless. Or they want you to go to the pharmacy and make sure that you fulfill your prescription of birth control pills. That's all they're doing. They're trying to prompt the modern day liberal female to be more responsible and not cavalier. Stop going out to the club and to the bar and to the lounge every Friday and Saturday night, having your back blown out in a random bar bathroom, not knowing who fucked you silly the next day, and then finding out 5 weeks later that you have a bun in your oven. And saying to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to chill out for a while because I can wait until whenever to go get this baby cut up. That's all they're telling you to do, is to be more responsible. But because the woman is never held accountable for her actions, they start to throw tantrums whenever they're prompted to actually be accountable and to be responsible.
Controversy over abortion rights.
Now these females here are trying to play on the Puritan image. It says trust women. No, that's not how a society is ran. The woman has constantly shown, there's no disrespect, I'm sure that I'm going to get people who get upset by me saying this, but the woman has constantly shown that she should not be trusted when it comes to certain decisions. She just shouldn't, because they're going to lead with their emotions, and the woman is always going to lean towards the liberal aspect. And even the color red. The reason why scarlet was always aligned with or associated with sin is because scarlet or red is associated with passion and lust and doing whatever you feel like doing. So the fact that these females chose to depict themselves wearing red, that's not only revelatory for us as the viewer, it's also a subconscious depiction of guilt or self-guilt, because deep down, most of these females know that that what they're trying to promote is not correct. They're just waiting for the man to tell them that they're wrong. The woman is, for the most part, is a child with breasts. People don't like it when I say that, but it's the truth. Does that mean that they're inept intellectually? No, not at all, or not necessarily. But they do have to be guided by men. It's just that you have to have men with courage to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and that certain laws should not be allowed. This old lady in the middle here has a sign with a hanger that says never again. I pretty much promise you that she's never had to have an abortion in her life. And if she did, it was because she had a bloodlust to do so. Because I don't see that many men who are going to be trying to knock her up. If females are going out here having hanger abortions, I can understand maybe back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they may have been raped. In this day and age where it's so easy to catch criminals, it's not as easy to rape a woman. And that's another reason why, I mean, really, if we want to stop a lot of these crimes, as the scriptures say, seek ye the old path. It tells you that in Jeremiah 6:16. It's far more difficult for you to be the victim of sexual assault if you're always alongside your husband. It's far more difficult that way. But, you know, once again, a lot of this goes back to the man. The man has to regain control over this society in a responsible way. That's not going to happen here in Babylon. This society is going to have to run its course. But in the meantime, brothers are going to have to mentally prep themselves to actually be executors, to be able to understand why things are the way they are, as well as why things are supposed to be the way they're supposed to be, so that cats actually have answers. A lot of brothers out here don't have real answers because they don't study society. They don't sit back and meditate on certain things like you need to. But once again, their signs say trust women. Trust women to do what? You're not going to make the right decision. We've already seen where trusting women has gotten this issue. It's gotten about 25 million children chopped up. Is that really necessary?
I mean, the most defenseless person in our entire culture is the child in utero.
The fetal heartbeat law would take effect next year and still allow abortions if the baby's life or the mother's was in danger.
Now look at this. They're still going to allow the woman to get an abortion if the baby has a fatal deformity or the mother's life is in danger. And I'm pretty sure that if a woman has been raped or is the victim of incest, that hopefully, she can, number one, report that crime to the police or some type of authority. And number two, if she finds out that she's pregnant, she can immediately get that issue dealt with. Because you should find that out within the first 5 weeks or so, I would assume.
Or in cases of rape or incest.
There you go. So in case of rape or incest, they will still allow the woman to have the abortion. So what exactly is the protest about other than the woman's bloodlust? Also keep in mind that there is a manifestation of the mother goddess that is lustful for blood, i.e. Kali. Kali also demands a sacrifice.
But our current governor, who claimed to want to move Georgia forward, is pushing this cruel, punitive, and regressive bill.
Abortion rights advocates like State Senator Jen Jordan say many women don't even know they're pregnant by 6 weeks.
Wow, many women don't even know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. So they don't know that 6 weeks prior somebody was running up in them raw dog. They don't know that. They didn't know that they had unprotected sex 5 or 6 weeks prior to officially becoming quote unquote pregnant. Once again, if you're more responsible with your actions, you should not be worried about the possible after effects of a more punitive anti-abortion bill. You should not be worried about that at all. As I've stated, if you're a man who's irresponsible and you've decided that you're going to have sex with 10 or 15 different women without protection, if you eventually contract an STD like HIV or something that's potentially fatal, whose fault is it? It's your fault. They don't want to hold the woman to the same standards of propriety as they hold men. If men were out here saying that they thought it was unfair that they were being forced to pay child support, even after the child was proven to be theirs, people would say, what the hell are you talking about? You have to be held responsible for your actions. You have to pay for that child. They would look at it as being ridiculous. They would call those men deadbeats. So why is it that females are constantly being portrayed as the quote unquote victim or someone that people should feel some level of pathos for. No. When you decide that you're going to lay down with a man unprotected and you get pregnant, there should be some provisions there. There should be some restrictions there in your conduct. Look at this broad here about to cry. Give me a fucking break.
Clear intent of this is to make sure that women have absolutely no access to being able to get an abortion.
Is that what the law says? Does the law say that the clear intent of the law is to make sure that women cannot get an abortion? Or does the law say we're just not going to allow you to have sex with 5,000 men and head to the chop shop whenever you feel like it?
Georgia will be the 6th state to enact legislation banning abortions after 6 weeks.
And brothers, truly, we have to start scrutinizing the mentality of so many of these females, because I see so many guys, they run around the internet complaining about the woman. If you spend time really observing them, you would not get caught up in a lot of the silly shit that you complain about. For the most part, the liberal woman is an anarchist. She's also someone who seems to indulge in or enjoy the pain of others. They're narcissists. So you should already have a basic psychological profile of the average liberal female in this society. So once you're able to discern that the female that you're dealing with is a liberal woman, as the vast majority of them are, I say 85% of them, then you should know exactly what the confines of your relationship are going to be. You're not going to be running around taking that type of person seriously and then act shocked once you get married or once you impregnate the person when her other aspect comes out. You should have expected that. Once again, the average liberal woman is a narcissist and a sadist.
Iowa and North Dakota laws were struck down at the state and federal levels. Similar bills enacted this year in Kentucky, Ohio, and Mississippi are all facing legal fights.
None of those bills are going to pass. But what this is an example of is how many people, many populations are trying to figure out ways to rebel against Baal worship. That's really what this is a sign of. Is it going to work? No. Because America is modern day Babylon, or is a branch of the modern day Babylonian system that is global.
I'm very frightened of the implications.
Makeup artist Jennifer Bennett works in Georgia's massive TV and movie industry. The Walking Dead, Black Panther, and the Hunger Games series were all filmed here. But more than 100 Hollywood stars promised to boycott the state if the bill becomes law.
Of course, because those 100 plus Hollywood stars are witches. They're venerators of Baal, and they understand the importance of the blood sacrifice. And that is what abortions are. They're blood sacrifice. They're blood sacrifices to keep this society going.
Women who rely on this to pay their mortgages, to support their families, to put food on the table, what am I supposed to do?
Georgia's governor says he expects lawsuits and is ready to fight for this bill. All of this has become a multi-state legal challenge and seems headed for the U.S. Supreme Court. Nora?
All right, Mark, thank you.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see what happens with the quote-unquote abortion bill. So peace.